Okay? What happens when men and women argue? All the research says that it works out best when men and women participate equally in relationships, including arguing over priorities, over what they're going to do, over who's going to do what. And there's a stack of studies on that line. So how do we go off? What usually happens when men and women argue? And a fellow, John Gottman, researcher at the University of Washington, has what's called the Love Lab, which probably you guys have heard of that, where he brings couples in, and he doesn't ask them to argue, because that wouldn't be a good idea, but he helps them identify a major area of contention between them and asks them to come to a resolution. And what happens? Well, of course, they argue. And he tapes it. And he also has them hooked up to skin monitors and various machines and instruments to tell how stressed they are. So then what do you find? Is that about 2 out of 3 arguments, who is more dominant? Who argues most strongly, men or women? Think of your own marriages. Women argue most strongly by about 2 out of 3 times. And in those arguments that get hot, where only one argues and one has fallen silent, by a ratio of 6 to 1, it is the woman who continues arguing or complaining, and the man who has fallen silent, who stonewalls, who isn't saying anything at all. So 6 to 1, you have almost a complete separation from men and women in those toughest of arguments where nobody argues. Okay? Which is a somewhat typical relationship, somewhat typical reaction for men, and makes women furious. Why do men do that? Well, Gottman had the stress measures, remember? And what he'd find is the moment the argument starts, men's stress would go sky high. If your pulse, heart rate, is 72 a minute, 2 seconds later it's up to 110. Honey, we've got to talk about this, I'm fed up. It's 110. Okay? So very severe stress reactions that men have. Men are stressed, intimidated in arguments, and often confused. Where's this going? What's happening? Why am I here? Go ahead. Sound familiar?